On Christmas Day of 2018, Gustu Mahardika took me on a really nice herb walk outside of Ubud in some rice fields. And Aiza Bedtao and I are back here now in almost a year later, and we're going to go back to the same herb walk, and we're going to look at these same plants and some other plants also from both a Hawaiian perspective and a Filipino perspective. What I found really interesting was that a lot of the herbs that grow here also grow in Hawaii. And I am here with Aiza Bedtao, and Aiza has told me that a lot of the herbs that grow here in Bali also grow in the Philippines. So we're going to do an herb walk, going back up the same herb walk from a Hawaiian perspective and a Filipino perspective, and kind of bring everything together. Here's our Oxalis, our sorrel. These are ubiquitous all over the world. The Chinese use them as a sedative, and they're sort of an alternative. This is a Kalinga. I can't remember if it's Nemoralis or brevifolia. It's a sedge, a Cyperaceae. And these are used all over the world for joint pain, inflammation, menstrual cramps, things like that. And there's also some hono here, some of our camelina. This is actually a food source in Hawaii. We will make this into a soup using this as a base and sweet potato leaves. These tips are edible. There's a sap inside that can be used on the eye. It's used to lower fevers, and it's used to moisten poultices. It prevents scarring, and it actually stops bleeding, so this is a really, really handy plant. Rigeron canadensis. This is used, it's called fleabane. It grows in North America, all over Hawaii. It's pretty ubiquitous. It's an Asteraceae, which is the daisy or dandelion family. And this is used to stop bleeding, both topically and internally. And the oil is used with cinnamon oil in some naturopathic circles for bleeding, GI bleeding, bleeding in the gut, things like that. This is Elephantopus. This is another Asteraceae. This, I use this as an antimicrobial in my practice. Again, it grows all over Hawaii. It reportedly is liver protective. I've never used it that way, but I actually should look it up and find out some research on that. I read that in a book on Ayurveda many, many years ago. Here's a Phyllanthus. This is a Euphorbiaceae. I don't use this much. I'm very careful around euphorbs, around that family, but it is used very commonly in Ayurveda for kidney and bladder issues. And I'm not sure, but this looks an awful lot like nettles to me. So I have no idea what that is, but it's very strange looking, so we'll get an identification on that in a little bit. And Aiza is showing me Zacate and Hagonai, and these are plants that she showed me in Babak in Lanuza, in Mindanao in the Philippines, and I'm not familiar with either one of these.
We're stopping for bleeding and
right.
For anti-infection.
So it's anti-infection, and they're both topical, huh?
Yes.
And this one is
Zacate.
Zacate, and this is Hagonai.
Yes.
Okay, and they're right here in Bali. Very cool. And this is also Hagonai here. And if you have an ear infection, you would mix the juices up and put it into the ear. So we have Zacate and Hagonai together. So would you show us how those are used?
You could get the young leaves of Zacate.
From Zacate leaves, yeah?
Yeah. But you don't have any, you are far from the hospital. This is for bleeding.
To stop bleeding, yeah?
Yes, for stop bleeding, plenty. And also for anti-infection. You just squeeze it.
Oh, yeah.
You just squeeze
like that, and then
you
rub it in.
Rub it, and then you could just
Oh,
put it-
poultice it.
Yes.
Got
And
it. And here's our old friend Biden's pilosa. Great wild edible, kind of a Swiss Army plant. Really good anti-inflammatory, antibacterial. Triggered by sunlight in the body through the skin into the capillary beds. Here's some Chamaesyce hirta, what they call the asthma plant. Apparently it's used for dengue here in Southeast Asia and in the Philippines and in Indonesia, but I don't use it because it's a reported carcinogen. But if I had dengue, I probably would consider it. And there's a Wedelia. It has a new name now. I can't remember. The Wedelia is, this has a lot of PAs in it. This is very liver toxic. So the Chinese call it Kung Fu Master's herb, but I don't use it because of the amount of PAs in it. This is the bitter melon, Momordica charantia. My Hawaiian teachers called it ka'ukama. And what's it called in Philippines?
Dahong ampalaya.
Ambalaya?
Ampalaya.
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 Nahon ampalaya. Yeah, really bitter stuff. And anything besides food? This is
There's also producing with the ampalaya small things. You could make that also for vegetables too.
oh, okay.
That eatable also.
And the fruits are used to stabilize blood sugar too. The ripe red fruits.
Oh, there's also pilay. This is also, you could eat some vegetables for making fruits.
Oh yeah?
Fruits of it also you could eat.
And so vegetables and fruits and do you remember the name?
Some, we called it this one in Samparawan.
Samparawan?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I wonder if it's a curcubit. Looks like it. Like the cucumber family.
It's somehow it's like a cherry.
Mm-hmm. This looks very much like Hibiscus tiliaceus. I'm pretty sure it is. It's certainly growing pretty vertically for a how.
And this is Madre Cacao.
Madre cacao,
Yes. You have to pull it all the leaves
like that,
for ripening the fruits.
for ripening fruits.
Yes. You have to put it alternate. So you have to put the fruits and another things
Oh, you layer it.
by layer.
Oh, interesting. And this is malunggay.
Yes. This is malunggay.
And what is this used for?
Malunggay is so many things that you could have the benefits of malunggay. It's called moringa.
It's moringa, right. I don't know much about it, but I know people really like it. I think it's high protein.
They have like seven benefits of malunggay.
Oh yeah.
Of moringa.
Uh-huh. And this is Selaganella shichangbai. The Chinese call it shichangbai. It's a Chinese herb. I've never seen it used anywhere else in any other culture in the world, although it certainly might be used. It's a club moss, and for years I would read about it being used for cancer from the neck up, and I always thought that was very strange. Like, how could an herb be used for cancer from the neck up? And then many years later, I was reading a paper by a naturopath who was, and the paper was on HPV and cervical cancer. And then it dawned on me, wow, I bet the Chinese use this for HPV of the throat. So I sent this off to him, and he came back and said, yes, the research validated this, that this is for HPV of the throat. This is poha that we just found here. Poha is a nightshade. It's Solanum peruvianum, I believe, Peruviana or Peruvianum. And it has these sort of Chinese lantern-like seed coverings, and like a little tomato. The fruit is very tasty when it's ripe. I don't know of any other uses for this other than as an edible, but it might be worth doing some research. Here is a peperomia. Very cool. I have no idea what species it is, but that's a panacea in South and Central America. I've seen it growing all over the world, and it's edible, and it's in the Piperaceae family, and quite medicinal. And these look an awful lot like pohole fern. I can't remember the genus, but they're used as food. And there are people propagating them for sale commercially in Hawaii. Aiza was saying that this is used as medicine in China. But as I was sitting here, I looked down and I saw, oh, there's some Drymeria here. This is Drymeria cordata, or it's probably some species of Drymeria. It's in the chickweed family, and it's used as an alterative, and Papa Henry Hawaii and the Big Island would use it for children's cardiac problems. And here's our old friend Sida rhombifolia, or Sida acuta, or one of those Sidas. Field mallow or huanghua mu. Really, really excellent antimicrobial. I think Sam Kaufman calls it wireweed also. Has PEA in it, which the brain makes when you fall in love. It's Malvaceae, so it's a good moistener, cools the system. Most excellent. And here's an old friend, lots of goticola, pohecula. Absolutely my favorite Hawaiian medicinal plant. Does a lot of things very well. Keeps the blood vessels flexible. Used for rashes and eruptions. My students say it's for heads, hearts, and fancy parts because it's used for dementia, poor memory, and also for cardiac problems, and then also for erectile dysfunction. It's used for small varicose veins. Just a great herb. It's edible. We make a pesto out of it. And this, I'm pretty sure, is a polygonum. Polygonaceae family. It has the sort of a remnant of that that chevron in the leaf, which Polygonaceae have. And here is a little Amelia sonquifolia. Used as medicine all over the world, but again, I don't use it because it has PAs in it.
It's time for harvesting the oak.
Aiza was just saying this is peanuts and corn. Corn I recognize, the peanuts I wouldn't have known.
It's time for harvesting.
Ready to harvest? Yeah. And look, an old friend down here. This is Eclipta hanliansa, Eclipta prostrata. This is a very well-known Chinese herb for clearing the yin in the body. I believe it's liver, kidney yin. It's kind of a standby for yin deficiency. And here's our old friend Maili hohono, Ageratum conizoides. There's PAs in there, so I don't use it internally, but it's really good for hemorrhoids and for fungal infections on the skin topically. And in some quarters it was kind of a panacea in old Hawaii. It says this is tangkon?
Kangkong.
Tangkon? How do you spell that?
K-A-N-G-K-O-N-G.
Kangkong. Huh. And it's used as a vegetable?
Yes, there is a vegetable.
And there's a red one and a white one? That's kangkong, and you have to cook it.
No.
Or you do it raw. Cook it?
Some people they eat it raw, some people they like it.
Oh. Kangkong. Oh, I see, because the stem is white.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Aiza says that this is edible.
It's steamy.
You steam those, huh? And they're edible?
Yes, it is.
So I'm not sure if this is Filipino herbs in Indonesia, Indonesian herbs in Hawaii, or Hawaiian herbs in the Philippines. This is David Bruce Leonard from the Earth Medicine Institute here in Ubud with Aiza Bedtao. Take care. Bye-bye.